Hello and welcome to Activating Magic. I'm your host, Darla Ledoux. I'm here with Ronda Renee. Rhonda, I can hardly believe this is your first time on Activating Magic because this is totally your wheelhouse. So I'm so excited to have you.
I know, and we've known each other for so very long. So very
Yes.
long.
You know, someone today in a class asked me, how did you get started? Tell me about your early days. And, I was in Cincinnati, Ohio before I moved to Denver. And I did a lot of networking. And then right when I moved to Denver, I went to Michelle's event and I met you. And, you know, networking in Ohio, especially at that time, there weren't a lot of people talking about energy or consciousness, or certainly not spirituality in the networking space. And then to go to Michelle's event, she was trained at the same coaching school as me, both of us way back, which is all about energy. And then meeting people like yourself who were like doing it and making a business out of it already was just so refreshing and wild. It was like surprising to me. I did not expect to go to an event and meet people that I resonated with. So
Yeah, it was like, here we are. We're all right here.
amazing. Okay.
Mhm.
So, with that, why don't you talk a little bit about your background and how you got into working with divine navigation and creating your own system for helping people really make good decisions in alignment with their soul?
Yeah, wow. It seems so disparate when you're like, talk about your background, and then this thing that I do that does not look like it has anything to do with any of that because, the professional resume says I went to fashion college. And then I worked in construction for, over a decade. Like, how did you end up doing this? And yet, if we scroll back, and first of all, look at my own divine coordinates, which we'll, I'm sure, talk more deeply about at some point. It all was simply my own journey of becoming, right? So here's one level of expression that puts my energetic frequency into the world. And then as I grow and evolve, here's another level, and here's another level. And each of the professional things that I did were loosely connected to the expression of my soul. That being
Hmm.
said, there's also the elements of, being a kid and just always knowing things I shouldn't know. Things that the big people would say, that's not true, but yet I knew it was true, right? Have even having visions at one point. And then when I translated that into my sales career, I'll always remember I was working with a mentor and there was some kerfuffle going on and he said to me, "Oh my gosh, you called this," because I had said this is going to happen and everybody thought I was crazy. And I'm because there was no evidence and I'm like, "No, this is how this is going to turn out." And later, when it actually started to happen the way that I called it, he said, "This is what made you so good at sales, isn't it?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe." But all I knew is that I didn't have to work my bid log the way other people did. I just looked at my list and I knew who to call. Right? It was
Mm.
like, yes, no, they're never buying. Oh, call them. Right? And so
Yes.
I had this sort of under the radar way that I learned to operate around, say, projections, sales projections, and things like that. Because I was just making stuff up, right? And how did I operate inside of the system to make the powers that be happy, but also do it my way as I moved through more of a traditional business sense. So, does that answer your question?
Well, it makes me have many questions. So, in that example where you knew the thing was going to happen, um, what's the nature of the thing? Like, you don't have to give any details, but like the nature of the thing. And then how'd you know? If you
I'm gonna
could
start.
say.
I'm gonna start backwards and say, I don't know. I don't
Uh-huh.
know how I knew, right? Like that is the essence of clairsentience, right? And cognizance. It's just like I felt it in my body and I knew.
You
And
felt
what
it
it
in your
had to do
body.
with is how a partnership was going to play out, like how
Mm.
this dynamic was going to actually unfold. And no one saw it the way that I did. And it turned out exactly the way that I saw it. So I've been
So
called crazy many times in my life because I can just see further down the pike than others
I'm
and
hearing a
some.
couple things like in my framework. So I felt it in my body is sensation magic.
Hmm.
And it sounds like you, I don't know if you were conscious that you had that going on, if you knew that that was a gift, or if it was just how you learned to operate. And then I
I
also
don't.
hear seeing, which is the recognition magic, like seeing the patterns and how they might play out.
Hmm. Yes, I definitely have both of those. Um, I don't know in that particular moment how connected I was to the sensations in my body part of it. But today I'm very aware. So I know that like looking back, I can definitely see that that was happening. But I can't say for sure how present I was to it in that moment. Although, I was acting like a crazy person. Like they thought I was nuts in this meeting, and I'm going, no, I hear your words. I hear you telling me it's going to look like this, and I'm telling you it's not. So I was the only crazy person in the room as far as they were concerned.
Yeah. I guarantee many listeners relate to both what you said, being a kid and saying the thing, and people going, no, that's not true. And you're like, yeah, it is. As well as being the crazy person. In my early days, I had an opt-in gift. I don't even know if it was an opt-in, but I sent a thing that was a list, the top 10 reasons you're not crazy. And it was the most opened email I ever sent.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So yes, relate. Um, so then fashion design, like talk, maybe this is a good time to introduce divine navigation and your coordinates and how fashion design like
It,
played
that,
in. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it was really merchandising and marketing more than design. If I had known myself better at that age, I probably would have gone to the interior design program because it was design, fashion merchandising, and marketing, and interior design all at the same school. Um, so my divine coordinates, I am truth empowered through authenticity and possibility, recognizing potential.
Mhm, recognition.
I know. I heard it and I was holding it. Yep. Yep. Recognition is in there.
Uh,
Um,
okay, so how did that
so
fit in merchandising and
yeah. So I mean, I started in retail, right? At 15, y'all, this is a very funny story. At 15, I was the youngest assistant manager in dress barn history.
nice.
Some of us are old enough to remember Dress Barn, right?
Yes.
So at 15, I was made an assistant manager. So like the whole company knew who I was. Um, yes. So if you think about it, what you put on your body, the way that I see it, right, is an expression of your truth,
Hmm.
of your authenticity. And even when I was working in construction, I sold windows for custom homes and I took a flat piece of paper, right? And I empowered its truth and potential by recognizing its potential, really. And, I would have in-depth conversations with the homeowners to say, is this how you really want this? Do you realize this is what the architect drew? And in much more detail, because the way that I see it, both your clothes and your environment are a container
Mhm.
for your soul to move in, right?
Mhm.
Like we're dressing our soul when we're doing it properly, the aligned, resonant way. We're dressing our soul. And we're also giving our soul a place of respite in our physical environment. So in both cases, I really was making sure that the soul had a place to be and express, to experience and express itself. So again, there's like that thread that goes through what I've now been doing for 15 years in introducing people to their soul so that they can live a more aligned and fulfilled life, whether that's in their personal life or their business life or
Yeah.
whichever.
So you used the phrase a container for your soul to move in. That's really cool. When you say container, what does that mean for you?
It to me, it's the energetic parameters, if you
Mm.
will, right? That says this is my space. So in fact, before we identify someone's divine coordinates, we actually have them prepare by making sure that they know how to get into their body, making sure that they know what's them and what's not them, right? Because even in having a conversation on Zoom like we're doing right now, it's super easy to energetically come up out of ourselves and go into the other person's space, right? Where we're going to be most in our power when we're fully anchored in our core, feeling ourselves in relation to the other person, not actually abandoning ourselves to be with the other person, right? So, container for me starts with your own sphere, right? And so, in some language, we could talk, there's the aura, but then there's the soul, right? And so your soul is like 500 feet out from your body. And so when you have ever had a day where you were like in a good mood, but then you're out in the world and then all of a sudden you're just like, "Rah." Well, somebody walked through your soul and you did not differentiate them from you. And
Yes.
then you carried that with you the rest of the day,
Mm.
right? So there's many containers, starting with our physical body, then the container of our full soul capacity and how we're holding that and filling that, and then of course the environments that we can create to support everything else that's going on in your soul and your physical body.
Mm. You're making me think of how they've studied that dogs know when their owners are close to home. When
Yes.
you're away and it's like they feel your aura coming.
Not even in the driveway yet, and they're getting ready for you to arrive.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Right. So uh, I'm going to go a different direction around what what is happening. So you work with people both in their personal life and in their business. And this is something I really admire about you, Rhonda, is you've developed these programs that are, like traditional advice might say, pick a lane, but you
Yes, it
have
would.
both, and you're very clear about that. And then
Mhm.
the other thing is you've really established these to where they're not moving, right? You're like, nope, this is what we do. This is where people get value, and this is what we do. And you have so many systems and things that you do each year, and I just love that. I really admire your ability to do that and to hold these two things. So, if someone is an entrepreneur and they're not in their divine coordinates and they aren't centered and grounded and they're leaving themselves and, operating like other people regularly, like what are some of the impacts they would see?
Oh, wow. What a good question. Um, okay, I'm just gonna go with like the stories that are showing up for
Hmm.
me. Um, because I think it also is connected to the fact that you said, traditional advice would say, having two ideal clients it does create challenges, right? Like I will always be transparent about that because we're having two different conversations. However, our business path clients start on the personal path as well because you're the person. And here comes my word container again, right? You're the container for your business unless and until a team gets to a certain place, the work gets to a certain place, and then the business creates its own container, right? So, but initially, it is the business owner, especially in a transformation business. You're the container for the business, right? So you're going to start on the personal path anyhow. That being said, one of the things I bump up against quite a bit is people having been told to fit into a super narrow lane of whatever it is, the three or four traditional niches. And I'm thinking about one of my Business in Your Soul alumni who is a Sacred Wealth is her brand. And she is a CPA by training. She has all of the mechanics, right? But she has also the mindset and the psychology elements of things as well. And she was told ages ago that she couldn't mix money and spirituality. And
Mm,
so she's been miserably on the side trying to build her business for all this time until, and I hear these words so frequently when we go through the actual business in your soul process to see what's the business someone really should be running, right? It might be the one they're currently running, and that they don't have to change the one they're running, but there might be some adjustments, right? She said, this is where I always knew I was supposed to be, but I was following somebody else's advice, right? So my one of my commitments definitely is I don't want to be the authority in anyone's life. I want you to use your soul as your authority, right? So
yes.
I will help you introduce you to your souls and learn how the spiritual technology of divine navigation works so you can be divinely navigated, right? And then the rest is
Right.
between you and your soul. So I mean, when she combined the two, the whole game changed, right? Entirely. She's got a TEDx talk that Ted picked up, and I think she's at like 900,000 views or something on her
Wow.
TEDx talk, right? So it's like there's the first of all, it's soul killing. I'm going to just be blunt about it. When you are trying to run a business that is solely based on external referencing and personality paradigms, here's how I think I'm supposed to do it. So people end up over modeling and they're not honoring who they are. You would say they're not honoring their magic, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not really using who they are to be the fuel inside of the business. They're trying this strategy, that tactic. Maybe this latest fad will be my answer, right? Where when you're running the business in your soul, sometimes you are going completely the opposite direction that everyone else is going. I have many stories of my own about doing that. People are like, you never did any of the things everybody says you have to do. Like, the word have to for a gal who has empowerment in the South and her coordinates, it does not go well. Don't do not use those words with me.
Well, I first of all, I loved the way that you just described that around used the word phrase personality something. Do you remember
Paradigm.
what you said? Yeah.
Mhm.
So is that another way to say over modeling?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
personality paradigms are I go deeply into the personality paradigms in Soulful Business Planning, which
Okay.
is our event coming up that we'll probably chat about.
Yes.
The personality paradigms are more like the behaviors that when we're in the personality, externally
Mm,
referenced versus in our soul, where we're being internally sourced. These are sort of the coping mechanisms and survival strategies that consistently people fall into.
like the proving and I remember
Proving and
some. Ah,
posturing, yep,
yes.
would be our
Mm,
east. And those are each of the personality paradigms also, or each set of them, they come in pairs because there's an internal version and there's an external version. So you mentioned the proving, so I'll run with
yeah.
that one. The proving actually tends to be an internal experience, like I'm trying to prove to myself that I can
Mm,
do this or this will work or whatever it is. Posturing is when we're proving to other people. So that's the externally referenced view, where we're trying to
mm,
look like maybe more than we are, for lack of a
yeah.
better way to say it.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good segue to my other question about the directions. So you
Mm,
mentioned empowerment in my
South,
west,
south.
south. It's funny,
Mm.
I saw it in the south, but I heard west. Um, so can you talk about the directions and how that helps someone with their navigation?
I can, and I can give you a visual if you want it, if
Okay.
that's appropriate.
A lot of folks will be on audio, so we just need
Got
to
it.
describe it well.
Yes. Okay. Well, it looks just like a compass. So I'll show it really briefly for those who might be watching on video. So it is just like a compass where the directions north, south, east, west, right? And each of the directions governs a specific center of being. So the west is the heart, the east is the mind, the south is our physical and action, and the north is our connection to source. The center comes into play as you're climbing the ladder of expression and you reach the peak of the pyramid of your soul. So there's
Mm.
obviously a lot more that we cannot go into, right? But there's so many ways. The question that you're asking, there's so many ways that you would use this information. Um, one of them is what I call the purpose framework, right? So inside the divine coordinates, there are multiple frameworks. One being, what is my purpose? Now, we hold purpose a little differently around here. Purpose is not what you do for who,
Mm.
it is who do I be for me? Because in this experience, the gift of me is expressed into the world, and some of us decide to find ways to be paid for that, right? But everyone on the planet was born for a purpose, to hold a specific energetic frequency in the world. That is what your divine coordinates are. So, us entrepreneurs are not the only ones that got tapped on the head by the purpose fairy. We are not specialer or more important. Right?
The purpose fairy.
And I like to say specialer instead of more special because it just like it's the ridiculousness of how self-important we can end up being.
Hmm.
So in the purpose framework, the north and south, so for me, the empowerment and the truth, that's the what of my purpose. No matter what I'm doing, that's what I'm doing. I'm empowering truth. Now, specifically, truth isn't, there's a lot of, especially in recent years, like problems with the word truth. But the definition of my truth is presencing the divine,
Mm.
right? So we want to bring the embodiment of your innate power through to presence the divine part of you. That's the meaning of my north south. So that's the what of my purpose. The west and the east are the how. So those are what I call the tools for transformation. So the west being emotions and the heart, emotional authenticity is key. What's really congruent for me and am I expressing is that in order to see what's possible. So I work with the authenticity and possibility for people in order to empower their truth so they can recognize their potential. That is not a marketing message. Nobody's
Hmm.
paying for
Right.
that. Right? And yet, your question of, what's the value of knowing it? The patterns that you run are also in there, right? So for me, I can chase possibility. If I skip over my authenticity, I'm going to end up in a ditch.
Mm.
Have to start with my authenticity because everything starts in the West.
Okay.
Everything starts in the West. Also, I'm jumping around to the different frameworks because South came up. South governs, each direction also governs a specific type of relationship, and the
Mm.
South governs work relationships. So
Okay.
even with my team, if I abdicate too much or I don't know what's going on, I feel disempowered, something's off.
Yeah.
Right. So knowing how you work, knowing how to relate to other people, knowing what to communicate and how to turn your soul's message, which is what I refer to the divine coordinates as, into a marketing message. Right. So
Mm.
these are all some of the beginning ways that it matters.
So you've got heart, or the West is the heart, and you've got authenticity. What are some other examples that people might have in the West? Just
Oh,
so,
good
because it's
golly.
like,
Yeah.
I think people will listen to this and think, oh, yeah, authenticity of my heart's important to me too. But
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean that's theirs.
Correct. Really good point. And frankly, you really can't identify your own coordinates because you can't see the picture when you're in the frame, right? And we get attached to things. And most of the time, when people make the attempt, they also skip over and they connect with what I call the big five, which is what we all experience when we are in our divine coordinates. Those
Mm.
are peace, love, joy, oneness, and freedom.
Mm.
The key distinction is our coordinates are our unique map. It is the map of your soul. These are the pathways to get to all of that stuff,
Mm.
right? They are not pathways, they are destinations. most of the time. It happens occasionally, but it's super duper rare. Okay, let me just run through some of
Awesome.
my current close clients because there's no limitation. We do not have a finite list of energies that could be a coordinate. I get new ones all the time, right? So there is no such thing as here's the 23 divine coordinates you can choose from. That's not how it works.
Uh-huh.
So, um, embracing, oh, you know what? I can cheat. I'm like, I think I have a list right here of something else I was working on because immediately I go, oh my God, how could I remember a million of them? But I happen to have a list of people who purchased a personalized audio centering of their divine coordinates from me, and I have my list right here. So I will just give you this list. Perception, which is a little unusual. It seems like it's an East energy, but they have it in the West. Integrating, self-reflection, interconnection, self-knowing, self-understanding, acknowledgement, interconnectedness, grace, self-embrace, resilience, self-responsibility, interconnection, self-actualization. And anything with the self in front of it could also not have a self in front of it. And it's fascinating to see how many people who have self in their West ordered one of these personalized audios because
Mm.
it's a behavior, like it totally makes sense. They are focused on self. And some of us have self. I actually have one gal who has three of her five directions. No, four of her five, because she has it in the center as well, have self in front of it. And
Mm.
sometimes people resist that. They're like, how come it's all about me? Because it's
Yeah,
all about
right.
you. Right? And sometimes it's not complete without us adding that, but it's not as common as this list makes it look like.
That's fascinating. That's
Yeah.
your recognition magic right there. Like, oh, look
Oh,
at that.
yeah, I
There's a
pattern
pattern
scan.
here.
I can see them. I can see them like crazy. And in fact, once we identify someone's coordinates, I don't do it this way, but I am capable of doing it this way. I can take that divine coordinates chart and I can say, oh, someone with coordinates like these likely experienced this and that, and probably had challenges here. And they're always like, how did you do that? I'm like, it's all right here. And we don't do it that way because taking you to your own awareness is
Yes,
way more powerful, right? Like,
totally.
I'm not interested in doing a reading that's just entertaining, right? None this, I'm not into entertainment spirituality. I'm into transformation.
Yeah, let's riff on that a little bit, taking you to your own awareness, because, well, we probably could have various discussions about how the transformation industry, if you will, or personal development industry has really wanted to formalize things because it's more marketable, it's easier to
Scalable.
sell, right?
Yeah.
Because if you believe there's a formula, you're more likely to step in versus realizing, oh, I have to actually be with myself and know myself and make my own choices and become empowered. It's like, no thanks, I'll take the formula.
Yeah.
So, yeah, talk a little bit about, let me ask it this way. Did you ever have a moment where you felt like, oh, wait, no, I need like where you got sucked in. Like I know you're really in integrous with your purpose. Did you ever get a moment where you accidentally tried to follow that and like instead of taking people to their awareness,
Oh,
wanted to tell them what to do or make it look marketable? Because
uh,
I've struggled with that. You know,
yeah.
I know your awareness is always going to be more important, but it took me time to have the inner courage
Mm.
to let someone be in their discomfort, let them be upset that I'm not giving them an answer, right? In favor of eventually they're like, oh, I see why, because
Yeah.
now I know all the answers. So have
You're,
you had a journey with that?
Yeah, in some different ways. You're making me think of like I use Voxer with my private clients, and there have been a couple of occasions where it's like I couldn't get back to somebody for a couple of days, right? And I'm always so like mea culpa, like I'm so sorry I didn't get back to you. And only 100% of the time they always say, "Oh my gosh, it was perfect. I needed to sit in this. I had this awareness. I had, right? So it was like not touching it
Mm,
is so often the answer, right? But we humans want to move away from our discomfort. So we want an answer, we want it fast, we want it now, even if it's the wrong answer. If it will temporarily stop our pain, we seem to want that. It's not effective, not the way to go. So there's a couple things that pop up for me when you ask that question. One is like way early, like in like 2014 or something, and I had a mentor and I was trying to do it their way. And
mm,
really, I luckily very quickly realized that anytime I abdicated and didn't come from my own place of truth being empowered, that it tanked my business. Like thing would be fine, everything would be going along fine. Oh, you should do this because you should grow more or because of this reason or that reason. And it always short-circuited things, like hands down. So it's something that's super important to me with my work with clients is I have expertise. I have things that have worked for me, but everyone has a different style, right? Not everything is in alignment for every person. Just doing it one way, we want to take shortcuts, but when we realize, and I know you get this, that you did not choose a business just to make money. This just
right.
happens to be the vehicle you chose to evolve your own soul. You're not going to get to skip the evolution part. You're not going to get to skip the becoming
Yes.
part.
Yes. You know, I have a client who is always like, do you have a template for this? Do you have a like an example email about this or an example email about this? And I'm like, God, I really don't believe in that, but I have it, these are the five things to consider if you want to put them in to that
Yeah.
email, right?
Yes. Yes. I'm with
And
you.
creating in that way, it takes longer, right? It's way easier to say, here's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And it really takes something to create frameworks that people can play in to find their own truth.
Yeah, and I love that you use the word create because I have found that us humans tend to recreate more than we create,
Hmm.
right? You're never going to get what's really meant for you from a place of recreation,
Yeah.
right? It's going, which
Oh.
is why everything we do includes one-on-one, like personalized, because just giving someone a curriculum I can't trust their answers because they're going to tend to default. This is not a specific
Yeah.
criticism of any particular human. It's just humans, right? We use the
Yes.
brain only, and the brain goes, here's what I know. Here's how I know to create this. But it's really a recreation because we're coming from pictures we've already seen. And the one time, you'll appreciate this, the one time for our annual New Year's event, I think it was like 2000 going into 2019. So it was New Year's 2019. It was really busy beforehand and we tried to use the same emails from
Oh.
previous years. We had the lowest opt-ins ever because my energy wasn't in there. My energy today, if you will, wasn't in there. So we don't have anything that just rotely goes out.
Mhm.
We in some way touch everything because that energetic frequency, if you're sending an email, y'all,
Mhm.
be really aware of the state you're in when you're writing it and when you're hitting send. So I remind my team every once in a while, don't you be loading my emails when you're stressed out. Like,
Right.
do your
Well,
coordinates.
and
My whole
you
team has their coordinates, so it's like do your coordinates and then send it.
you did this with your hands too, that sensation of like the energy in the email.
Yep, you'll see it
Love it.
everywhere with me. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so tell me about a time when your guidance pointed you in a direction that seemed crazy and maybe to your conscious mind, maybe to people in your life.
Mm.
You listened and it ended up working out better than you could have expected.
I listen to my guidance.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, golly. I don't even know which one to pick from because I feel like most of my life is run that way, but definitely leaving my leaving my job. Like it was the craziest, made no sense, ridiculousness. Um,
Mm.
in 2000,
This the sales job?
my sales job, yeah,
Mm.
2008, I made over six figures as an employee in
Mm-hmm.
2008. Like today's money, that's
Mm.
like a $250,000 probably, right? Like I think the last year I was full time, I made $140,000. It was insane. It made zero sense. And my regional manager and I, she was also a woman, we were the ones that opened the state of Colorado for this company. And I was having my annual review. It was 2008, so there were construction
Yeah.
slowdowns, but I worked on really expensive stuff. So that stuff didn't slow it. All people who have money always have money.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't, I wasn't taking a hit. My sales had not gone down. They were laying off people actively.
Mm-hmm.
It was March, I think. It was March, and we were having my annual review, and I was like, look, if you have to lay off more people, make it me. And we're both crying, and I'm like, I know it doesn't make sense. I get it. I would have been the last person laid off because my sales were awesome. And I was the first person hired in the state, and they were going backwards. They were doing that silly
Mm-hmm.
thing of,
Yep.
last in, first out kind of deal. And we thought it would be like July. It turned out to be like 3 weeks later. And I'm
Mm.
like, oh. And the person that we thought was going to take over my territory wasn't hired in the right order. So they wanted to give it to someone else. And I was not pleased with that, who that person was. And I remember my boss saying to me, this is your job. Like, I would never let you go. You don't have to leave. And I said, I do, because I'm afraid if I don't go now, I'll never go.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
So it was a big decision. I mean, like,
What's that feeling right now, Rhonda? Because I feel your emotion.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not being hidden. Um,
Mm.
it's my purpose.
Yeah.
It's my purpose. Like I haven't tapped into being in that moment again in a while, right? Like that was a turning point.
Yeah.
I'm not a gambler, but it was like all my chips in, like push them right into the center of the table. And it looked like for a long time, it looked like a crazy decision
Mm. For a long time.
for a long time. I went through my entire 401k. I had had multiple rental properties. I sold them all to fund the first year in my business after
Mm.
going from making $140,000 and coaching on the side, right? And having so much fun. This is one of my other theories proven out is that when you're just enjoy an expansion, right? Revenue and things come to you. I was doing my job in less time than ever, making more money than ever because I was having so much fulfillment and joy coaching
Mhm.
on the side, right? Okay, I'm going to do this full time. I made $10,000 my first year full time in business.
Yeah.
I knew how to sell something tangible, right? Like here's wood
Right.
and metal and here's why we use this and right. And so I had to learn how to sell something intangible. Once I unlocked that, luckily, second year, then I hit six figures like that.
Mm.
But in that first,
Yeah.
and also I was exhausted. I was a single mother. I was in complete adrenal fatigue. I joke about sitting in a chair for almost a year and meditating and journaling and right, just like being. So, I don't know if I could say today that I was really trying to make money. I also found that if you have resources, you don't have to make your
Mm.
business work sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not needed. So
Yeah.
sometimes when we have a
I've
plan
had
B,
those conversations with people. You got to get rid of that savings.
right?
Do something.
If we have a plan B, plan A doesn't have to work. That
Right.
too often is the way that it happens. So, yeah, I appreciate getting to tap back into that again. And look, as soon as I do, it starts to come back.
Mm.
I'm such a
I
sensation magic
feel
person.
I feel, Rhonda, such a sense of like reverence and honoring of
Mm,
the courage that that version of you had to make that choice.
yeah. Thank you.
And I'm feeling you feeling that pain of those initial years and what it's like to learn to sell yourself.
Yeah.
It's
My
it's
son is 34,
real,
still mad at me for that choice.
really,
That's his work. He'll have to take care of that on his own. Yeah.
because he had a hard financial year that year.
Uh that they never heard no. I was a single mom, for
Mhm.
almost a decade before this happened, probably at least 8 years, and they never had to hear no. Like we had money for whatever they wanted, right? If I didn't have a good reason to say no, I didn't. And but I mean, he doesn't know yet. He doesn't know yet. He'll learn. Yeah, that's his journey, right? So I feel really proud also that I have reached a point both in my personal journey, right, as well as being formed by supporting people, guiding people in their personal journey,
Yeah.
that that's not mine to fix, right? That's his. But no, he's still actively upset with me. But he's a finance guy.
Okay.
He's a managed
Okay.
assets advisor, and he's like, why in the world would you ever walk away from that kind of salary to risk, like Kesma Soul told me to.
Yeah, he'll have his moment, I'm
It,
sure.
it'll come. And not everyone wants to live that way or will live that way or is prepared to live that way, but I must.
But a lot of people get to that point of there's got to be more to life than this.
Yeah.
Whether you're an entrepreneur and you have to follow your guidance or not,
Mhm.
most people hit some version of that at some point.
At some point, it's true. And most of the people we work with are a bit older. Another framework inside the coordinates is each direction actually governs a specific age range. When we
Mm,
have activation experiences, I used to call them woundings, like a lot of people do.
yeah.
But I have actually learned that those woundings, what we perceive as woundings,
Mhm.
are really moments when we're being activated into something. And
Yes.
that is our whatever our divine coordinate is in that direction because we're meant to be the source of it and we're not being the source of it. So, zap, come on, bring it up from within you.
Yes.
But too often, what happens is that instead we put in coping mechanisms and survival strategies. So, the unconscious expressions of our coordinates is what comes out
Mm,
rather than the exalted expression of them.
mm, love that. Um, so I think about this reaching people, or my hope is, in addition to, my audience and the audience of my guests, that that these words happen upon the ears of people who are waking up and they're wondering what's my more,
Mm,
and do I dare to actually make a living with my magic? Do I dare to make decisions that maybe other people judge or it makes other people uncomfortable? And I'm just curious, what words would you have for someone like that?
mm,
Like they're just waking up and they may not have a support system.
yeah. Well, find a support system would be the very first thing that shows up, a community, a mentor. It is not necessarily easy to walk this path alone, this type of path alone. And yet we tend to feel very alone in it, right? So that's the first thing that floats to the surface for me is that you don't have to do it alone. I also am more cautious, even though I leaped off the proverbial cliff. I like to make sure to slow down and really like get to the energetics of things before making those other decisions because frankly, you can fulfill your purpose in the very next room you walk into. When you are embodying your soul, when you are embodying your
Yes.
divine coordinates, just this past weekend, I was at a intimate event where I was not leading. And I had to leave early on Sunday because I needed to be back for my crazy schedule. I needed to be back to work on Monday morning, right? So I left a little bit early. And it was lovely that I got an acknowledgement from everyone, just one word of what did I contribute to them over the last couple of days. I was not working. Very few of them know anything about what I actually do, and none of them are clients,
Mm,
right? So it's not, they didn't have an inside track on this. And two of the women actually used words that are sourced from my coordinates and are in our what I call our primary benefits of divine navigation because
Mm,
they felt it and they reflected it
yes.
back, right? So that's just my example of I don't care how you make your money. You can, to use your word, you can embody your magic. Your magic is a gift no matter how you're making your living. But this is where I'm going to get emotional again. Our world needs you. I don't even have to know you to know that. Because if you were born for a purpose. And
Mm,
that is to hold this frequency because you were sent here because the planet needs your frequency. And the world cannot reach its potential until each of us meets ours.
just let that sink in. Thank you, Rhonda. So if someone is in a place where they're building a business that's soul led, talk about your planning event.
Yes. We have, at the time of this recording, the 13th annual Soulful Business Planning is coming up. And it's a fun journey because I've been doing this, like I said, for 13 years. It started out in a room in person. There were 20 people the first time I gave it, and it was called Intuitive Business Planning, I think, the first time. And then I changed it to Intentional Business Planning, and it became Soulful Business Planning. So there's been iterations. I used to charge for it 5 or 6, 7 years ago, something like that. I got the inspiration to give it away. And you know what? Way better results. Grew our audience, and we had, tons of new clients to welcome in. One of my colleagues who had never taken it before, she is since an alumni, she said, that didn't feel like a free event. And I said, well, it wasn't. I didn't take anything out of it just because I decided to give it away. In fact, every year I add to it. So it's great for whether you're a planner or not a planner, right? So we've got two extremes that it
Yep.
serves. One is people who want to fly by the seat of their pants. They feel boxed in by planning. I watched one colleague one time have a literal meltdown when asked to put a date on the calendar, like full on meltdown, right? So there's those people we love so much. And then there's the other extreme, people over plan and they're not paying
Yeah.
attention to the energy. They're not using their intuition. There
Yes.
is no space to follow the inspiration, right? So
No space for magic.
right. So no matter where you fall on that continuum, this is for you. And we do it from an energetic place. It isn't just about the external referencing tactic and strategy. We go to the energetic and set the container. I never realized how often I use that word, Darla, until you brought it to my
It's
attention.
one of my favorites, so I
Yeah,
love it.
well, hello, another thing we have in common. We really do set the container for where is the next evolution and growth. First of all, for your own soul within your business, right?
Yeah.
Again, you think your business is about other people. It's not. They're just agreeing to play with you for your own benefit,
I love it.
evolution, enlightenment, etc. Right? So yeah, it's 2 half days. It's very full. It is not theory. We are going to get in there and do the things together. It is November 7th and 10th. And I used to do it in one day, and it's so hard to step away from your business for one whole day. But people seem to be able to manage 2 half days. And if you can't be there live on day one, you have a couple of days to catch up. We get the replay out just as fast as possible the next morning. You can catch up and be with us on day two. And there is a replay period on the backside.
Awesome. So we'll put that link in the show notes. And then if people are watching this and it doesn't happen to be planning time, is there a place you want to send them?
Yeah, I think what's showing up for me is really when you ask the question about the West and like, okay, that's your West coordinate, but it's probably not someone else's. So we actually do have a special, just short 15-minute experiential audio that will give you a direct experience of the West. It isn't
Oh,
necessarily going to reveal your West coordinate, but it's gonna
Mm.
give you an experience of the West. And the beautiful thing is it's one of the hidden places where when you go through that, if you would like to share it with us, you can potentially qualify to have a free Divine Next Step session.
Mm.
So it's a great little back door. You cannot find it on the website
Ooh,
proper. So
love
we will,
secrets.
yeah, it's a secret. It's speakeasy. So Darla is the code word. Or maybe magic. Magic is the code word. So we will give you a special link for that as well, Darla. So it allows you to have an experience of what the coordinates are like. And then if you'd
Yes.
like to explore further, we will provide some other resources as well.
Rhonda, this has been so much fun. I'm so delighted that we did this together. And thank you for your vulnerability
Mm,
and just always bringing that truth in the North to every conversation. Appreciate you.
thank, thank you for noticing.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Do share this with someone who needs to hear this message today, and we'll see you in the next episode.